from is why. We broke down the why.
Yeah.
How inflammation is such a problem for so many of us, and it'll age you quicker. That's the other thing, like if you're inflamed on a cellular level, you are going to age faster.
Yeah.
If you have inflammation in your brain, your likelihood of having, a dementia or something like that is going to be higher. So, in sugar for sure is one of those things that is researched and known to affect inflammation in the brain.
Yes. Yeah.
So without a doubt, if you have a history of that, and I think I've talked about this before, but if you have a history of that in your family of any type of dementia, you really want to watch the sugar.
You really do.
Let's talk. So we just gave them two of the most inflammatory things, which are the plant oils, omega-6s, and sugars. Let's give them simple ways to work around that, right? Because it doesn't mean you're just going to completely cut all that out of your life. So we kind of broke that down with the sugars. You can use raw honey, right? Would be a better answer. Coconut sugar would be a better answer. For sure, stevia and monk fruit.
Yeah.
And did I just say maple syrup? Maple syrup would probably be a better answer too, right? So you can use all of these as sweeteners if you don't want to completely forego the sweets.
Yeah.
For oils, and this may seem like a simple conversation, but I guarantee that there are people listening that don't know this. So let's have this conversation. The best and healthiest way for you to cook foods is not with a canola oil or a soybean oil or safflower, sunflower, whatever it is. Your healthiest form of oil, if you're cooking the food, is going to be avocado oil, or you could do ghee. Right,
which is clarified butter.
Thank you. You could do grass-fed butter, like Kerrygold is my favorite. I think you like that as well. Or you could do coconut oil, right? And then if you are not cooking, if you need a topping, say for a salad dressing, or you just want to top some pasta, whatever it is that you've made, then you can also bring in your extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
Right. So, but when you stick to those types of oils, you're going to be creating far less inflammation in your body. Now, I mentioned that when you go out to eat, it's very rare to find restaurants. It's just because of the cost. So when it's a high volume restaurant, it's very hard to find a restaurant that's using these fat. Most of them are using canola oil or soybean oil or a mix. Here's what I sort of think on that. And I know I have colleagues that would disagree with this wholeheartedly, but there's a balance between being aware and being cognizant and doing what you can to keep yourself healthy and going too far the other end and creating more stress for yourself. So in other words, we all who doesn't like to enjoy a meal out?
Yeah.
Right? If you really want to cut the oils out, you can certainly ask when you order the meal to have everything cooked in butter. And they will typically accommodate that because most places have oil. But what I'm saying is please don't stress yourself out, because if you're stressed about it, that's not helping anything.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, on the oils, I think you're going to get those people that say, well, isn't that a lot of saturated fat? And
yeah,
the whole point of it is
talk like that.
Oh, yeah. The whole point of it is cholesterol and the heart disease complex is so much more than just fat. It's also combining the carbohydrate, the refined sugars, the inflammation that, from that metabolic disorder that we set our bodies up when we eat so much of those, many of those things. And I think, so, it depends on who we're speaking to, right? So we have different points of references here, because I can tell from what you just said, you're sitting here thinking of someone who is already pretty far along in their health journey. They're aware. As I sit here talking about sugar, my mind goes to many of our clients that we still help day to day. And I live in a part of the country where, if you just look around, obesity rates are more than 40%.
Yeah, sure.
We have a lot of people that they just have no clue,
which is inflammatory,
how to do it any different.
Sure.
That's the thing. And I don't, there's probably people listening that are on both ends, no matter where you're
all ends of the spectrum.
Okay, you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
But yeah.
Well, I agree. And I would never want to make this. And that's why I mentioned maybe sidestep my talk about the restaurant, because we all have to start somewhere. At the end of the day, if you can just get to a restaurant that you're going to and not order fried foods, you're doing yourself a huge service.
There you go.
And if you could just, if you're concerned about the butter and the coconut oil, just substitute whatever oil you're using with avocado oil. And you can pretty much find avocado oil just about anywhere nowadays, right? If you just did those two things, and decreased your sugar,
Yep.
you would be at far,
Huge.
far
I mean,
further ahead. Right. So I hope that wasn't too stringent for people. I appreciate you saying that because it is true. We all have different perspectives and we're all starting at different points on our journey.
yeah. Well, and we're talking about metabolic disorders. So that, higher blood sugar is a piece of that. And if you're already in that pathological place, if you're already in a place where your doctor has said, you have some pre-diabetes,
Yeah.
it's not as easy as just necessarily like stopping eating it. And that's what we want you to be aware, because you've now got some blood sugar fluctuations that are physiological. They're not just going to necessarily be overcome with willpower.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And so you should be getting some good advice there, but that's why we want to talk about berberine today.
Yes, I love that. Before we go there,
Yep.
can I add one more thing to
Yes,
the
please.
food list that can be inflammatory, and then we
Yeah.
can move on to ways to combat inflammation. I just want to say those were the two biggest, the oils and the sugar. But beyond that, there are foods that we eat, and this is not for everyone across the board, but some of us have reactions to food, or we have sensitivities or even allergies that when we eat them, they'll create inflammation in our particular body. So we need to be aware of that too. And as a general rule of thumb, the foods that I find that are most inflammatory for people because they cause reactions are gluten is usually number one, the protein in wheat, dairy, soy, and corn. So though, just be mindful of that too. And there are all kinds of different testing that you can do. You can work with functional medicine doctors to see if you have a concern that you might have a reaction. But the best and cheapest way to find out if you really want to go hardcore on this is by removing all of those from your diet and removing them for several weeks, see how you feel. And then one by one, add one back in, one at a time, and eat it daily for like 3 to 4 days and see if you have reactions.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that.
Elimination diet is always
yes, exactly. So anyway, go on. So do you want to talk about some supplements that are anti-inflammatory?
Well, when I think about inflammation, first and foremost is sugar. And so one of the things that is so great, we've talked about it sporadically here and there, but berberine is it comes from a plant. And it actually it's a supplement. So it can activate certain proteins and enzymes that directly regulates how the body uses blood sugar. Now, this isn't something that you could just start taking and notice a change in your cravings or your blood sugar fluctuations tomorrow. But if you were to take it for 2 to 3 months, there's been a lot of research on this. What's the drug everybody, it's escaping me right now, but everybody gets put on
The peptides?
No, for
metformin.
Yes, thank you. So in the same sort of realm, it has been shown to be as effective as metformin.
So metformin, for those of you that don't know, is a drug that's given very regularly for diabetes and prediabetes, right? To regulate blood sugar.
And this is natural, so there's no side effects. And it's very powerful. So one of the reasons maybe you don't hear about it is, again, it's not regulated by your pharmaceutical companies, but you're always better to take, in my opinion, to take a natural solution first, and then you can always move on to something stronger if needed. If you're not in that urgent
absolutely
situation.
And I will link that product in our shop.
Great.
Our brand that we like in that product. So you can go ahead and look for that too if you're interested in knowing more.
Great.
I have another one I'll throw in there too, which is okay, you're gonna correct me because I always say it wrong. Turmeric. Turmeric. So it's a spice that is in a lot of Indian food, right? In curries and things like that. It's a very golden, very pungent spice for those of you that don't know, but it is very anti-inflammatory. And I prefer, when I take it in capsule form, I take curcumin, because curcumin is like the bioavailable or the bioactive compound that's in the turmeric that is anti-inflammatory. So it's much more potent. And I have that in our shop. And by the way, I Ken, if you're listening, or if somebody is listening, this is gonna get back to you. But I've given up fighting the battle with him of constantly eating as well as he can, because whatever, he travels for work and it is what it is. So I do whatever I can to keep him healthy. And the one thing that I can do is put
Give him
vitamins out for him each week. So I have his vitamins out in a week-long tray, and he has daily. But Ken gets, he probably doesn't know this, but he gets curcumin every day because of its anti-inflammatory properties, you know, all across the board, cardiovascularly and everywhere else. But curcumin is also, just as a side note, like if you have athletes or sports players, it's protective against concussion. Like it's just, it really is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite goes-tos.
Love it.
Goes-tos.
Yeah, I mean,